And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, for a new episode of the Electrek podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Winchow. How are you doing this week, Seth?
I'm good.
All right. This week's episode of the Electrek podcast is brought to you by Camp, a manufacturer of coolers and mattresses for your Model Y. We're going to have a little bit more to say about them later on the show, but you have a link in the show notes and the articles that comes with the episode if you want to check them out. All right, let's jump in. We have plenty to talk about this week, and we're going to start out with some data coming out of S&P Globals about the first half of the years in terms of EV sales in the US. So this is always a little bit interesting because, as we've been saying for a while, Tesla basically is the US market in terms of like volumes. It has changed a little bit over the years. For the longest time, it had like 80+% of the market. It has gone down to in the 60% range now, but it's still the majority of the EV market. And since Tesla doesn't break down its sales per region, we don't actually have the exact number. But S&P Globals produced an estimate that should be fairly accurate. Like I looked it up, and it looks like it makes sense. And here's the thing: so it produced these two charts that visualize just how much of a lead Tesla still has on the market. Because what you're looking at right now is the first 6 months of the year, 6 months of 2023, over a decade into this EV revolution, this like renaissance of electric vehicles. Obviously, electric vehicles had their moments several times in the history of the auto industry, but there's this latest one where it's the takeover, let's call it. We're 10 years into it right now, and this is still the US market right now, with Tesla in the first half of the year, even if it's off by 20%, because again, it's an estimate, Tesla is outselling the next 19 competitors put together. Isn't that crazy?
I mean, it's basically every competitor, right? It's like everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, if they own 60% of the market,
automakers in the US.
Yeah, I mean, they own 60% of the market or more, so they make more. That the rest of the market makes 40%. They make 60%.
Yeah, it's just when you say 19, it sounds like a lot. A few things that were interesting to note, like Rivian is now top 5.
That's cool.
Which, as a startup within just deliveries within only the last few years, it's already in the top 5 again for 6 months of the year. So that's kind of like a kick in the nuts for the automakers, really. Like a Rivian like that can just come out of nowhere with a few $1 billion. Like it was very well funded. Let's admit it, though. Rivian, they did an excellent job in fundraising, so they came out as a big player pretty quickly. But still, it's not a 100-year-old Ford. It's not a however old like Chevy is, and all those. Or a powerhouse of the Japanese like Toyota and the Koreans, like that, been doing cars and doing them well for a long time. They just came and like already grabbed a top 5, and then obviously you still have Tesla at the top that is untouchable, literally, in terms of volumes. We have the same thing if you can do the breakdown with the models, and it still looks like crazy with Tesla in green here. Obviously, Model Y took over everything. Model 3 still a very good performance in terms of volume, destroys everything else that doesn't have Tesla in its name, and probably will start doing better next year with the Highland. Once the Highland is ramped up, it's
a lot
Model
of people are
3.
waiting for that one.
Yeah, obviously, I think the Model Y will still stay on top just because of the segment, the crossover segment. It's just so powerful.
Even though I would say the Model Y has way more competition than the Model 3.
Good point.
I mean, how many sedans are there out there? Just a few, but like everybody, like the rest of those vehicles are all kind of SUV-ish.
Mm-hmm. You have Model S and X that are a little bit further down the road there, though I think Model X will do a lot better in the second half of the year in the US with the new price point that it just achieved, and that gives it the tax credit for the base model. That's always a big game changer. People just don't want to leave that money on the table, and now they're gonna go for it. But yeah, it's just it looks pretty bad for everybody else. Now, looking at the bright side a little bit, we know that there is some more appealing, more mass market, And hopefully, though, we've thought that before, it hasn't been the case, higher volume EVs coming from these other manufacturers. GM is one that we're pretty hyped about with the Equinox EV and the Blazer, maybe a little less so high volume, but in the Silverado, though, again, Silverado is what kind of volume is it going to be available at, and how quickly? I don't think that next year you see 100,000 Silverado electric. Do you think? Am I
No
being too
way.
pessimistic? Yeah, no way.
No
Okay.
way.
We're on the same page on that. So it's similar to what happened with the Lightning. Lightning hasn't taken over and everything. It's been doing okay. Obviously, they had the recall and all that. It was a lot of these vehicle programs have some issues at first. Now GM coming a little bit later with that. Maybe they're gonna have a little bit smoother ramp, but there's no one that has delivered in a high volume, in truly high volume electric vehicle in the US other than Tesla. That's just the truth. So until legacy automakers can prove they can do that, they can't.
It's interesting that the Rivian R1S is the only Rivian on there. I don't see the R1T.
It's the first 6 months of the year to June. I think the the R1S, you're right. The case on the R1T, I would think would have been there too, because the ramp up earlier this year, the first half of the year, I even think the R1T would be a little bit more popular. The R1S was ramp up was a little bit later.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And
then obviously the Chevy Bolt's going away, so the next biggest vehicles are the ID4 and the Mustang Mach-E. Both of those seem like they're doing okay, but not flying off the shelves.
Yeah, not super high volume either, and they were the first fully built EV ground up for these two automakers. And
I mean, a lot of it's at the dealership. Are they supplying the dealers with enough inventory? Are the dealers trained? I mean, it's going to be a slog a little bit for these guys.
Yeah, there is an argument to be made that the dealership model is one of the main thing holding them back. Obviously, if they're not making them, they're not making them. But the dealer model is also they are the middlemen between the customers and the automakers. And if they are not pushing for it, or if they're not giving the automakers feedback, hey, people are asking for this, then it can slow everything down literally. All right, sticking with Tesla and deliveries, we have some delivery expectation because on the next podcast, we're going to most likely be talking about Tesla's delivery numbers for Q3, because they are expected, we're the 29th today, is it early next week probably. And the expectation are kind of all over the place with this quarter, because there was the warning that production is going to be down because of factory shutdowns. We have seen those factory shutdown, a relatively short one in Shanghai, and in Texas it's been a weirder one. Parts of the factories have been at least slowed down or shut down for about a month, and at least a full week, a complete shutdown. So obviously Texas is not the biggest producers of Tesla. It's actually the smallest producing factories for Tesla, but still it's going to have an impact. And so just as a reminder, so Tesla has been consistently delivering record-breaking deliveries every quarter for the last 2 or 3 years, basically. And last quarter was another record with 479,000 vehicles produced, 466,000 delivered. So 466,000 is the record to beat. Now, with what Elon warns during the last earnings calls, most people think that Tesla is just not gonna beat that record. So we're expecting something below. But like I said, the estimates are still all over the place, with Bird saying 493,000 deliveries, so a giant beat over last quarter. I think we can forget about that, but maybe not. Then at the lower hand, you have Deutsche Bank saying 440,000 units. Then you have RBC Capital, another big Wall Street firm, saying 462,000 units, which is actually the overall consensus of all the Wall Street together. It's right on that. So Wall Street is expecting only a slight decrease in deliveries in Q3 of about 4,000 units less than the last quarter, which again was a record. So it's still going to be a big record for Q3 like versus like Q3 of last year, which was in itself a record. And then you have Troy Tesla on X. He's a pretty big following for his quarterly estimates, which are, I think, always within a 5 or 10% range, if I'm not mistaken, other than some maybe a few outliers, quarters that didn't go well. But yeah, he's at 442, so he's much lower range than everything else. And
he's typically optimistic too. So
I don't know about that.
No?
He's always pretty close. I don't know if exactly optimistic, but I think for this one, I think he's probably closer to the truth. Like I think Wall Street is kind of setting up Tesla for like disappointing with 462,000 deliveries, especially with Elon warning that it might be a back quarter. Normally, when that happens, it's like you should check your numbers again. So yeah, in the 442,000 units range, I think it makes more sense. All right. Going back to what's happening with the legacy automakers. So there's the UAW strike going on right now. It's been 2 weeks now that's been ongoing. It's not a full strike. Like for some reason, the media kept warning us about it's going to be a full strike. Everything's going to shut down. Like, didn't turn out that be the case. It's more of a gradual strike, though it did increase this today.
Yeah,
they did some more closures at Ford and at GM, not Chrysler, for some reason. And even though they kept saying that all week that they made some progress with Ford, so I don't know what's happening in this case here. But yeah, some more plans on both sides. And what I thought was interesting this week, and there was a very interesting note that prompted this article that I wrote from Morgan Stanley about how Tesla looms large over the UAW strike. So obviously Tesla is not directly involved; it doesn't employ any UAW union workers. But because of that, it's sort of like the example of like what can you do without UAW workers? And first of all, let me preface this, but I'm not anti-union in any way. Like the concept of a union of like collective bargaining power makes sense to me. I think like it's generally a good idea, but like a lot of good ideas, people run with it, and then it's not true to its original nature at times. And UAW is probably one of the worst example, I think, of a union. Like it has, I mean, I don't have enough fingers to count major corruption scandal that happened at that union over the years. Now it does have a new leadership, which actually most people say is the reason prompting this new massive wave of striking that's happening right now. But what's interesting is Morgan Stanley did a comparison between this and the latest strike was 2019 with GM with the UAW, and at that time Tesla was not it was starting as a somewhat of a big player, but it was not a profit machine that it is right now. So they didn't have that as an example. Now they have Tesla as an example as the most valuable automaker in the world, the one with the highest gross margin in the world, and then they can compare that with the labor costs of the big three in Detroit versus Tesla, and Tesla has lower labor costs. However, to be fair, the labor cost is not a giant percentage of the cost of the vehicles that the big three are producing right now. It's about between 5 and 8%, depending on the automaker. So it's significant, but not massive. Tesla is apparently around the same spot. It's just that you have to compare Tesla differently because Tesla is much more vertically integrated than those other automakers. So the fact that they have the same percentage makes Tesla still more efficient because Tesla produce more of their own vehicles than the big three, which have over the years relied increasingly on suppliers, and they outsource a lot of their parts. But yeah, I thought it was interesting because obviously Elon couldn't stop himself of commenting on the situation, because the UAW, what they're asking in general, like what is being reported a lot is a 40% pay raise and a 4-day work week as well as improve overtime and retirement benefits. And obviously, the 4-day work week works with the overtime, because if you put a 4-day work week, well, then it's going to make more overtimes available, because the automakers cannot switch rapidly to a 4-day schedule without changing their complete business. So it's going to boost that pay raise on top with the overtime.
That's kind of surprising they're asking for a 4-day work week, isn't it? Like when did a 4-day work week become,
in the
something?
US too? Like in Europe, I would be like, of course they're asking for that, but in the US has been historically like work a lot more, I feel like.
Right. A 4-day work week seems kind of like, I
It's a
don't
big
know.
push. It's a big
I mean,
push.
and I'm assuming they stay at 8 hours a day, like.
But I think it's the idea is the overtime. Like they're gonna secure more overtime because now anything past 32 hours is gonna be overtime.
Oh, okay. So they actually work 40 hours
Yeah,
and
I
then that's
think
8 hours overtime.
at first, at the very least, unless they start to more efficiently implement it, at first they're gonna have to have just a ton of overtime, so they're gonna make bank. So Elon commented on that and said that these pay increase and 4-day work week would put all the automakers on a fast lane to bankruptcy, which I'm not completely disputing that, to be honest. But the other thing that's important that people are not noting enough is that the electric vehicle transition is also a big part of the reason behind that strike. And that's they are asking for protection against factory closure because of electric vehicle transition. And the reason behind that is that while we thought that the legacy automakers will quickly invest into converting their existing factories into electric vehicle producing factories and use the same workers, or mostly for the most part, it's not has been the case. They have had a tendency lately of building separate factories. Ford is a big one, obviously. New factories to produce electric vehicles, because electric vehicles are produced differently, and also because they require less labor to be produced because they're simpler to build. And that is also scaring UAW. So the concept of itself of building an electric vehicle is somewhat threatening to the union, which is counterproductive to the goal of transitioning the industry. It's a weird situation. There's no clear way out of this right now. Obviously, I don't think they're gonna get the 40% pay. Probably even gonna have to give up the 4-day work week also. But obviously, you come into one of those situations like asking more than you actually want to. It's part of a negotiation tactic. I don't think I'm surprising anyone here. But what I thought was interesting with the Morgan Stanley note here is that Morgan Stanley actually believes that even if the UAW doesn't get anything, they don't see a path to the legacy automakers selling EVs in a high volume at a profit, which is wild. Now, one caveat to that is that Morgan Stanley has a volume estimate that is much lower than the big three's management target for EVs. A lot, 1/3 to 1/4 lower than the no 1/3 to 1/4 of the targets of management, so a lot lower. But it's kind of a safe bet for Morgan Stanley, because in the past that has been true with the EV goals of these legacy automakers. So it's kind of a wild guess that they're making. But like you could read between the line of that Adam Jonas post on automakers this week on the UA strike and how Tesla plays into it, and basically it sounds like Tesla is gonna turn them into like niche automakers, like EV automakers. Like they're not gonna be big juggernaut anymore if they survive it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way kind of things are pointing. Like Tesla's almost doubling year over year. There's no signs of stopping. And the unions, strangely, like you're going after the companies that are suffering the most, are that are shrinking and that are going to have a hard time keeping up. Like, frankly, if I was the UAW, which I have feelings, pro and anti-union, I would be like doubling down on getting Tesla workers unionized. Like that is where the money is at for the
Yeah.
UAW.
But
Like
they
that is
tried before and it didn't work too.
they
So,
tried, it didn't
yeah.
work. They don't just, when
But
that
maybe
happens,
they
you don't.
should try now. When I say that from their perspective. I'm not
Yeah,
necessarily thinking
exactly.
that it would be a good thing for Tesla. So but
No,
I'm
it
saying
wouldn't
for
be.
their perspective, they should probably try now because the Tesla stock, like the big thing for Tesla workers is that they all have access to stock options, and you literally have some production associates that have been working at Tesla for a long time that probably became millionaires off of that.
Right.
So that is great. However, that was early on. Now the big rise in Tesla stock is not there anymore. The stock has stabilized. It's still a big stock, but it's not. There's no 1,000% anymore, and that is how you get a lot of money out of stock options. So it's less attractive. They have diminished some of the contribution as of late because of the microeconomic situation. So maybe it would be easier right now to do a unionization push. I'm not saying that it would be good. I'm just saying that it might be easier. But but to the defense of of the automakers, like you say that they are going after the ones that are having the toughest time. The problem with that is like not on paper. On paper, they're having record profits right now. So the unions want to go after the automakers right now because they say, hey, look at all the money you're making record profits. But if you look at where the profits come from, it's it's coming from their ICE business. It's coming from selling parts for their ICE business. When I say ICE, I mean internal combustion engine. So it's not it's not the future of the industry where they're making profit. So if you have a good understanding that the future is electric and they are struggling badly right now to make money off electric vehicles, you see that they are making a lot of money right now, but that money is slowly and maybe even rapidly going away over the next decade, and then they're going to be screwed, and they're going to have these union contracts with UAW that won't make sense with the economics at the time when they don't have that highly profitable business of selling parts for their big fleet of gasoline vehicles.
Yeah, it's kind of a really bad. The fact that they're even, giving 20% raises, I kind of feel like the union should take the money and run and double down on Tesla.
Yeah, they have offered 20%.
Yeah, they've already offered 20% raises, not 4-day work weeks, but you know.
Yeah, I mean that might be the if they want a chance of keeping their job long term. Because the thing, if Ford and GM are not there anymore, UAW doesn't exist either. And UAW's numbers have been dwindling for years too already. Like it used to have like 1.5 million members. Now it's like I don't even know if they have 200 or 300,000.
I'm not sure.
All right, moving on. The Tesla Semi traveled 1,000 miles, over 1,000 miles in a single day of work. This is part of the what you call it, the North American Council for Freight Efficiency. They are doing this study. Actually, it just concluded yesterday, over 18 days. We don't have the full result just yet, but we have the data. And for the second to last day, one of the 3 Tesla Semi that's part of the Pepsi fleet that is participating in that study, the number 3, the Tesla Semi number 3, traveled 1,076 miles in a single day, which is pretty awesome. I don't know why they say like total miles and then average miles per day, and it's the same, because it's not like that truck has traveled anything from 0 mile and because then one day that it actually didn't travel up to now that was the record at over 1,000 miles. You can even see the data of like the battery charge versus the speed. So it was mostly driving at highway speed at 60 miles per hour. But here you can see the charge too. So it stopped twice for a full charge and twice for like a half charge. And a lot of people say, we don't know if they was carrying a load on everything. We don't know exactly the load, but in the study, the agency said that on average, they were over 70,000 pounds, which is less than 10,000, within 10,000 pounds of a full load. But they were carrying tens of thousands of pounds, basically. I thought it was interesting because I remember when I read that, I saw the update on the website that said that one of the Tesla semis that travel over 1,000 miles. I remembered just a few weeks ago, I read that Michael Lohscheller, the Nikola Motors, I don't even know if he's still the CEO. Like Nikola Motors has changed CEO so much in the last year that I don't even know if he's the current one. But he was earlier this month, and he said that the new hydrogen fuel cell truck of Nikola travel over 900 miles in a single day. And then he had the balls to say, I defy anyone to find another zero emission vehicle truck anywhere that can run up to 900 miles in a day. Well, Michael, I found one. It's a Tesla Semi. And actually with independent study, they were able to confirm over 1,000 miles, over 100 miles over your goal. So I don't know, do I win anything from your... I didn't even know that defy is like that's your challenge. Is that what it means?
Yeah, and I don't know. It's hard to take Nikola serious about anything right now.
Yeah, those 900 miles were they downhill all the time? Like you have to ask. You really have to ask them.
That's a long downhill.
Yeah. All right, this thing is actually happening. Said the Tesla. The Tesla drive-in dinner theater and supercharger location in Hollywood, it's happening. So this project, if you are not familiar with it, has been in the works since 2018. Elon announced it, and he announced it, and everyone was like, all right, is it one of your real project, or is this just like something you see on Twitter? It was real. They tried to do it at first in Santa Monica, but it didn't work out for permitting reason and everything. They ended up just building a supercharger there. Then they moved it down the road on Santa Monica Boulevard, but in Hollywood, so just a few miles away. And they plan. I don't know what they're doing here exactly. If this is just like a one-off, or if it's like see how it goes, and maybe this is something that we can replicate other places. But the goal is a big supercharger station. So the original plan said 29, but I was looking at the newer plans, and it looks like it might be 32 stalls for the newer plan. And then you have this circular-looking diner on 2 stories. Well, the upper story is mostly a terrace, like a patio, and you have a covered area. And it's a retro style diner with 2 giant movie screens. So they're gonna show movie scenes or full movies, I'm not sure. And you can park, charge your car, go grab a burger, whatever, in the diner. And by the time you're done to eat, you can leave. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the goal is here. It might be just a one-off, or it might be Tesla testing a concept to literally get into the restaurant business. We know that Kimball Musk, Elon's brother, who also sits on the board of Tesla, is in the restaurant business. He has his own chain of restaurant, whose name I knew the name of that of the chain.
Country Natural something.
No, it's a sharp name, like really simple. I forget it, but and I think he sits also on the board of Chipotle, I think, or one of the big restaurant chain. So he's deep into the restaurant business. So maybe he could help Tesla launch this new division of literally a restaurant division. Obviously, the idea behind it is creating amenities for the supercharger network. For the most part, Tesla tries to deploy the supercharger, especially the supercharger for longer distances. So like between cities, on roads that are highly traveled. They try to put it someplace where there's going to have as much amenities as possible. So like a few restaurant option at a truck stop or something like that. It is enjoyable for people while they wait for the car to charge. Now, it's not always the case. Sometimes it's just they don't have a great spot for it. So maybe this would be a solution where when we don't have enough amenities, but we have a great location, like maybe we do our own amenities and we do one of these. In Europe, Tesla has tried other things. They partner with a company that have like an automated lounge area where there's machine that you can like do your own pizza and things like that. We have one here actually at Rouler Electrek in Trois-Rivières that has its own. Sorry.
I've been to that one. It's got a bunch of stuff. The one in Europe actually had a swimming pool for a little while during that heat wave.
I think that might have been another one in Europe. swimming pool. But yeah, the one you went to though has changed a lot since you went. It was a few years that you came. Now they have one of those automated pizza machine there too.
Well,
That you can. They make the pizza automatically with a robot.
by the way, Fred, kind of late breaking news, but it looks like StreamYard is now putting us in Twitter as a whatever
A
Twitter
space
a space. I think it does. It kind of looks like a space.
with a video or no, just the audio.
No video.
Okay.
But it says we're hosting a thing.
Are there people in the space right now that are?
Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
that's interesting.
The video's there.
But people,
But
the space is also like you can like bring people in to have them talk to at the same time. So we would be able to take calls eventually, like take people like talk to people through the space live on the podcast.
I guess I'm not sure
That would
because
be interesting.
it doesn't look like exactly like a space that I've seen. Anyway,
Are you logged in right now as Electrek, or are you logged in
no,
on
I'm
your?
logged in.
Okay, so if you were logged in on Electrek, maybe you would be able to control the space. I don't know.
Let me see.
All right, let me move on in the meantime. So, like I said, the Tesla Gigafactory Texas was shut down for a while, but it reopened this week with employees coming back in. And as soon as the employees came back in, something else came out of the factory, and this new Cybertruck. And we get some insider information from Joe Techmeyer, who's fly drones there almost daily and often talks to employees. And he says he got some inside information that says that those are master candidates. So not just release candidates, they are master candidates. And he posted a video of them, and they look pretty refined. They look very good. It's definitely the best looking Cybertruck prototypes that we've seen to date. Looks very finished, very polished. There's this still massive windshield wiper, obviously. The seats are also covered in plastic, so it looks like it might be like something that's ready for delivery, basically. There was two of them. There was this one, and there was the other one at the Supercharger station here. They look sharp. It look like the trims, the finish on it are sharper. Obviously, it's a drone video, so we don't have like close-up shot. I saw Tesla already saying when these things came out, this says the new Cybertruck comes out with perfect fit and finish. I'm like, how can you tell that from a drone shot? That's insane. But they do look, to be fair, they do look more refined.
You know, it's kind of interesting. We've said this before. That dashboard is crazy.
Yeah.
I just wonder, like, you could probably fit a full like rooftop solar panel. You can see like the solar panels above it. You could see that would almost fit on there. I wonder if that's
like
going
a
to be
full
a thing.
like 420 watt panels,
Yeah.
like fitting in there. It is massive. Like look, there's people in the truck in this picture here, and this looks like you could fit a full human being like laying down there easy. Obviously not in thickness, because the crush between the windshield and the dash. But it is weird looking from. I don't know how weird it would be. Like we haven't been in a Cybertruck in a while, so we don't remember. But if when you're sitting in it, if it looks as big, like obviously this angle from the sky makes it looks giant.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, it definitely looks more refined, and I guess the ceiling's going to be black, or the roof is going to be black.
I think that's also like the lighting situation. It makes it looks like darker at certain angles. I don't know. And sticking with the Cybertruck, we have kind of a cool indication that the launch might be very imminent. Some Tesla employees on the forum, the Cybertruck forum, posted new launch apparels, a launch team apparel for the Cybertruck. Tesla distributed them to employees apparently this week. If it starts hanging out launch apparel for the Cybertruck this week, you might expect that the launch is within the next few weeks, or at the very least, we get a launch announcement in the next few weeks. And I would expect even the next few days. I wouldn't be surprised if like this weekend or early next week, Tesla starts sending out invites for the launch event for the Cybertruck, especially since like already sold with Tesla credit, but sold the invites to the event. Haven't yet to announce the actual date.
That Cybertruck stitching is a little bit hard to read.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it
even
was
know what
like
it's supposed to say.
one of the trademarks that they did originally when they unveiled it back in 2019. I remember it was the first one. And for a while, we thought that's maybe how they're gonna spell it, but it looks like they're sticking with it to a degree. Um, yeah, the kitchen. So it's just called the kitchen Kimball Musk. Thanks, Ian and Doug for letting us know the kitchen restaurant. There's one, I think, one in Boulder. That's the first one, but I think now it's in the south too. I think they have like in
And there's one in
Tennessee.
Chicago, I believe, as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. All right, we're gonna have a few more items to discuss, but we can do a quick read about test test camp. I
Yeah,
think
so
they sent you a few products to check out.
So Test Camp sent us out a refrigerator. It's called the Tesla Fridge. It fits in a Model Y. It fits in the back seat between the two front seats, right underneath the vents. Um, if you scroll down, you can kind of see the Tesla Model
This
Y
one,
fridge there. Yep.
you gotta click on it.
Oh, it's at the top too. Anyway, it's nice. You put a 6-pack in there, bunch of water bottles. Just nice to have. You
Just
don't have to
thinking.
leave it on. Um, and yeah, it doesn't take up too much power. I've driven around with it for a few days. Didn't really notice any, power drain. It plugs into your lighter adapter. It kind of just wraps around. So yeah, nice little product there. And then of course, we've seen before Tesla campers like to have a camping option. So we've covered a couple of these mattresses in the past. This one's a little bit nicer, I would say. It's basically two sides. So if you have a companion, $325, you get a nice cushy mattress. Comes in a nice pack that fits in the front or in the back underneath the seats. Is just kind of nice to have around. You can get stuck somewhere, just start camping. Yeah, so two nice products. Company called Test Camp. Check them out. We have a link in the show notes. I think it's a small $5 off coupon as well. So
Check it out.
yep.
Thanks, Descam, for sponsoring this week's episode of the Electrek Podcast. By the way, if you do enjoy the podcast, and I hope you do, we podcast has been doing great. We are consistently in the top 10 automotive podcasts in the US, which I think is a nice accomplishment for our scrappy little team here that just cover electric vehicles, basically. So if you do enjoy the show, you want to help us grow, if you can give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that helps the show a ton. It's free to do, takes a second. We've got a few great reviews recently. Appreciate every single one of you that did one. Also on YouTube, we're always live on YouTube. Click the like button right now. Click the share button. Click all the buttons really, and that helps the show a lot. Engagement and whatnot. And we are on all the other apps too. If you're watching us on Facebook, apparently we're on Space on Twitter, or I should say X. So if you can click a like on that and everything, takes a second to do. Appreciate every single one of you that do it. All right. Also, we have a few more news items to discuss, but then we're gonna jump into the comment section. So yeah, we are live and we have a bunch of people watching live. If you have a question for us, or if you have any subject you want us to discuss, go ahead, and we're gonna get to it in about 10 minutes. I'm gonna go real quick and be right back. I'm gonna let Seth talk about the EV9. I'll be right back.
All right. Fred's going to pick up a iPad, I think. All right, so Kia announced their pricing on the EV9 electric SUV, which I think is going to be very popular. The EV9 is a kind of Rivian R1S sized, big. It kind of looks like it could go off road, but maybe not with the base trim. 7-seater, so it's got a third row, and it's kind of like a real SUV, not like a CUV that we've kind of seen Model Y type stuff. So this is a bigger one, and the price at $54,900, according to Kia, is a wake-up call to the industry. Yeah, I don't think Rivian's coming down to this price. I don't know that the Jeep Scout thing is going to be this inexpensive. The problem is these are built in Korea, so there's no tax credit. So a Rivian that, for instance, my R1S costs around 70,000. Then after the tax credit, it's down to 60, and it's got way more range. This base price EV9, the base price is, or sorry, the base range, I believe, is like 220 something miles, 230 miles. So you're not getting a ton of range in for your money there. Obviously, 220 miles is great for some people, but you're going to have to pay a little bit more if you want to get close to 300 miles of range. And again, that tax credit isn't probably going to come until Kia makes these in the U.S., which we think will be in a year or two. So that look forward to that, and maybe some price cuts there, or at least some tax credits.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's sad about it. Like, even if the price is good, some people won't buy it just because they feel like they're leaving money on the table without the incentive.
Oh yeah, and the EX90 is kind of another competitor there, although that's not built in the US either. The Volvo.
Yeah, there's always the leasing if they lease it, but I don't, normally they don't launch it. They don't launch the lease option at launch. Maybe they will in this case because of that. Or do we have the pricing for the 300 miles version?
I don't know that they announced that yet. I feel like they announced it in other geos, and we kind of extrapolated that it was going to be a little bit more.
Yeah, well,
80,000. Oh, that's the EV.
No, yeah, that's not it. Yeah, it should be closer to probably like 65, 70, something like that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Northvolt had a big announcement this week. If you're not familiar with Northvolt, they are bigger in Europe. They have a few factories already in Sweden and one in Germany, though I don't think the German one is in production just yet, but they are building it out. And they are one of the earliest player in the new wave of battery startup that came on. And it was founded by two of the early executives behind Gigafactory Nevada. So they were working for Tesla and working closely with Panasonic to set up production of the battery cells for Tesla by Panasonic in Nevada. And they left Tesla, I don't remember exactly when, but quite early on. And they were like, hey, I think we could replicate that success of Gigafactory Nevada in other places by building other gigafactories. And they started Northvolt, and they did that in Sweden. And now they are coming to North America with an announcement that a new massive 60 gigawatt hour factory that's going to be on the South Shore of Montreal between, if you know the region, between Saint-Basile-le-Grand and McMasterville on the 116 highway there. It's actually exactly where I grew up. And if you're familiar with the place here, that's going to be the view now from the 116 highway with the Mont Saint-Hilaire in the back. You're going to have this giant facility from Northvolt that's going to employ over 3,000 people, apparently. It's going to be a $5 billion US factory, $7 billion Canadian. Now, the craziest part of them all, I'm not even sure exactly how it's going to work. They are getting, it sounds almost like they're getting more money from the government than the thing's going to cost. The Quebec government announced $2.9 billion in incentive for the factory, and the federal government announced $4.4 billion. That's Canadian money, by the way. So it's pretty wild. But it's going to be a giant factory. We don't know exactly where the cells are going to go yet, but Northvolt already has a giant list of clients from Volkswagen to BMW to, a very deep client list. So I'm sure they're going to have a lot of people lined up to buy those cells, especially for the North American market now, because of those increasing every year requirements for the tax credit that the cells, or at least components of the batteries, in majority comes from North America or countries that have free trade agreements with the US. Speaking of factories, Lucid also unveiled its latest factory, and it's at a place that is completely new for an EV factory, Saudi Arabia. So if you didn't know, Lucid took a giant investment from the Saudi, what do they call it? PIF? I think the
fund.
Yeah, I only knew it by its acronym, PIF, but it's the big fund that is backed by Saudi Arabia and all that petrol money right there. And I think they own now a majority of the stocks, even though Lucid is public.
60% or something.
Yeah, I think PIF owns most of it. And as part of that investment, it came with, hey, you're going to build your next factory in Saudi Arabia. I didn't think it was going to come that fast, but they unveiled it this week. It's there. And the first phase is only about like 14 cars a day, so nothing crazy. But Lucid right now, with the current vehicles that they produce with the Air, it's not high volume vehicles anyway. But the whole factory at one point is expected to be able to produce 5,000 vehicles per year, which is somewhat significant, especially for the region. Now, the country itself has ordered like 100,000 Lucid, so it would take a few years to produce them from there. We'll see. I think it's an interesting move. Obviously, like some human rights issues in Saudi Arabia. I don't think it's a big surprise to anyone. So it's a risky horse in some way to attach your wagon to. And we talked about it, Seth and I, in Germany, and you had a point where you said that the Saudis are big on like showering people with money, but when the investment doesn't work, they're quick to cut the hose too. And then, my counter argument to that was like, at least with this factory, it kind of solidified the investment where.
Yep.
Saudi Arabia has an issue of like transitioning to other industry than petrol now as the world transition to renewable energy. They've been aware of that at least, and they are trying to make their best. And like this is one of the first example of like, all right, let's try something new. Let's try to build electric vehicles there. Let's try to attract other companies to build electric vehicles there. And they need this project, the first one, to work in order for that transition to work. And now with Lucid being invested in them, if it doesn't work, like they're gonna probably. I mean that by the fact that if you look at the Lucid's financial statement lately, it looks like it's in the fast lane to bankruptcy. But with fast lane to bankruptcy without further investments. That's what I mean. And now it's sort of guarantee them further investments. Like if they need to go back to the well, they can. I would think. All right, should we get into the questions? Do we have a few questions?
Yep.
I think so.
All right, starting with Mr. Turkeyneck. What effect will the UAW strike have on the sales of non-unionized EV manufacturers? I think we got to that after the question was asked, but I think, the sales aren't super strong anyway. So maybe if the strike is slow, maybe they'll catch up. Hopefully it's not too big.
But to be fair, there's more non-unionized EVs than Tesla, so it might help those two.
Basically it's just Chevy and Ford, because Stellantis doesn't make many EVs at all.
Yeah.
So only Chevy and Ford are really affected negatively.
But also to like, if I would assume that the question stems from the fact that the strike is gonna stop the production of some of these union-made EVs. The truth is, right now, it doesn't have a huge impact. They haven't targeted the plants that are producing EVs. Also, like Ford, most of their EVs right now, they come from Mexico, so that's already out of the UAW's touch. And I don't
say most. I think they sell more F1. No, F-150s, are less than Mach-E's. So.
Yeah, and I don't think they have they've strike at the plant that is making Lightning just yet. I think unless they did today, because I know they announced the new factories from Ford today. I didn't check which vehicles they're producing from there.
All right, what's your call on deliveries this quarter? Consensus is around 440, 450.
The Wall Street consensus is 462 to be 1,000 to be precise. I think lower than that. If Tesla can deliver like over 450,000 vehicles this quarter, I think that would be good. Now, it wouldn't be good for their stock, apparently, if the Wall Street expect 460, but I think it would be a good quarter within the current situation with factoring in the factory shutdown and all that.
And what do you think the whisper number is? Like, what is the market kind of expecting behind the scenes? Like
I said, I think the 462,000 is too high. I think I don't know what's happening with that. I would be surprised if that's really what they are expecting.
Okay.
I think, like I said, closer to 450 would make sense.
All right. Does the Highland Model 3 have the large air filter with bioweapon defense mode? Did we ask about that? I feel like we asked somebody in Germany about that one.
Yeah, I think it has a bigger air filter. I don't know if it's big enough to have the HEPA certified
Yeah, the frunk was
mode,
all
but
realigned, and the actual storage place looked
yeah.
like the same size. So I would say so. I would say it's likely.
It would be it would make sense because Tesla has doubled down on that feature lately, like
Yeah.
especially with hair quality being a problem in many cities around the world, or not just cities now with all these forest fire and whatnot. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
places that it's a lifesaver, really. So good feature
Adam
to have.
Orta asked the question: is there any chance Tesla employees to unionize in the near future? I can imagine Musk pushing back hard on this.
Not
Yes,
hard to imagine. Yeah,
it's not hard. You don't have to imagine. He's done it
yeah,
in the past. So,
yeah. I
I'm
mean, he's been sued for it in the past for doing it illegally.
right.
Yeah, I mean, there is a push right now in New York for the autopilot, the data labelers. I haven't heard about that in a little bit. I don't know how this is going. For the most part, like I know that Tesla has this year. I've heard from sources that they are not giving any performance-based bonuses this year for salaried employees, so not for hourly workers. So that I guess helps a little bit on that front, where at least the hourly workers, which are generally the one being unionized, are not are still going to get the performance based, but not the higher ups, not the people that are paid by the year. So yeah, and Elon's approach always been like, yeah, but even though that's why actually he was sued for insinuating that if you do get unionized, you don't get stock option, which I don't remember if he was actually. I think that he was actually fined for that, or the company was fined or whatever, because you cannot. That's a threat basically.
Yeah.
Um, uh, does it make? I don't know if it makes sense to like. Is it mutually exclusive, where are you need to you're in the union or you're part owner of the factory? You cannot be both of the company. You cannot be both like that. I don't know if that's clear.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, Carl in San Diego. I would say there are signs of stopping. We're talking about the demand with Tesla. It's the first year they had to struggle to create demand. They're dependent on production and already over capacity. I mean, they had to like lower prices a little bit. There's still quite a bit of margin to go through. They could probably lower prices again if there is more demand issues. I think with the Model 3 coming, that'll be in pretty good shape. The demand actually had to be created for the Model S and X mostly. So I don't know. What do
Well,
you think?
Model 3 and Y also got
Yeah,
down in prices a
yeah,
lot. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I
Since the beginning of the
mean,
year.
obviously, I'm beating a dead horse here, but the macroeconomic situation is definitely the biggest contributor to this reduction in demand, because when the price come down, they sell. So it's not an issue with the product. It's not an issue with EV demand. The same thing is happening with non EVs too. Like it's hard to sell a car right now because the monthly payments are so high. Like
Hmm.
everyone I talk to nowadays, like that are thinking about buying cars, or people that can afford to buy it
Pay
outright,
cash.
or
Yeah,
the even I've heard people talking about going into the retirement fund, and like I prefer to get some of that money out and pay the car outright because I need a car than paying those crazy interest rate. Like so, it's a harder discussion right now to buy a new car than it normally is when you can just grab uh, a loan with a few percentage points of interest and
yeah,
doesn't kill you on your monthly payment. So, but the only solution to that is like Tesla has to slash prices so that those monthly payments or compensate the price cut, compensate for the interest rate, or it's easier for people to buy the car outright.
yeah,
Because when the price point is there, Tesla sells. That has been very clear. So I don't think there's a very big problem with demand right now. Model 3 Island should help a little bit too, just for like the new people. A lot of people just like to have the new toy from Tesla. So that, like, Tesla is like at least a core like membership of like 100 or 200,000 people that just always have the newest Tesla,
Right.
just like Apple with the iPhone.
Did you get your iPad, by the way?
Yeah, I just got
All right. Carl in San Diego, has Elon ever seen how a drive-in theater works? Apparently, the architect didn't understand the draft assignment.
Well, first of all, the picture that I showed is a render from like a rendering, an architectural modeler that's not affiliated with Tesla. However, he did the renders based on the original plan that were published. Carl, are you some kind of like restaurant designer here? Are we really like criticizing the architectural plan for a diner?
It looked fine to
Um,
me. I
yeah,
mean,
look cool.
given the space constraints, I mean, clearly, like it's not a drive-in movie theater. Like,
Yeah,
you're not going to have that kind of situation. But yeah, I guess we talked about Kimball's thing called the Kitchen Restaurant
yeah.
Group, Hedgerow, American Bistro, and the Kitchen Bistro. Still too much focus on making DC fast charging entertaining, terrible business model, and just a weird thing for so-called sustainable transportation to focus on. In a way, I kind of understand that as DC fast charging is getting quicker and quicker. It's hard to even just like run in, go to the bathroom, grab a bite to eat, like grab some food and get out and your car's already charged. So I don't know about the DC fast charging, entertaining, the lounge model,
But to
especially
be
with
fair, this one is like in town. Like it's not it's not a spot necessarily where having lived close to there, it's not like all right, you're going from like San Diego to San Francisco and like let's stop there on our way up. Like you need like it's quite of a detour off the highway to
Mhm.
get there. So I think this might be more maybe a situation for like EV owners that live in the city doesn't have like there's a parking problem in Los Angeles where like there's a lot of the people that have street parking now.
Mhm.
And if you want to have an EV, you have to have a place to go charge like regularly, and that could be one. Like you with the kind of range that cars are getting these days, like if you're not driving that much, if you're just like driving to work or something, your charge can last you a week. So maybe on Friday night, you have a little you come back to the Tesla diner and you charge your car for the week and have a burger and then go home and park your car for the week at home, like something like that,
Yeah,
or
so the
in the
Tesla
street.
diner, you would spend what, half hour, 45 minutes there?
Yeah, maybe you make these not as fast too for that reason. Like you don't like
Yeah, you
you
make
want the
them like
250
150s or
kilowatt
something.
charger. You want them on the highways where
Right.
you. Yeah, that makes sense.
These are more like the urban 70 to 100 or
There's no
whatever.
one size fit all for charging.
Right.
There's gonna be different solutions.
All right. Doug Grunberg's, founded in 2004 by Hugo Matheson and Kimball Moss. The Kitchen Restaurant Group is based in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. Bear in mind, charging your car at the Hollywood Supercharger only secures your stall for the brief time that you're actually charging, as always. So you'd have to park elsewhere to hang out. Yeah, so that's kind of along the same lines about
yeah.
charging. This is their fifth vehicle launch. Why Cybertruck launch feels like less professional effort than a startup. Carl in San Diego, just
Yeah, he's being a downer today, Carl.
yeah, come on. We don't know yet. I
I do
mean,
understand where he's coming from though, because it is super weird that this car was unveiled in 2019. We're now 4 years later, weeks away from the first deliveries, and we still don't have specs and pricing. So
the
if you're
pricing part
familiar
is
with how other manufacturer launches their car, it is weird. So
right.
I don't know about professional, but um, yeah, I mean, I think Tesla is almost more like technology. No, even though I'm gonna destroy my own argument by saying that because they are certainly more professional. But when Apple launch a product, normally it's like they unveil the product, they launch it, and like it's coming out next week. Like you're gonna have it next week. I feel like Tesla is like looking more to that. Like you get the information when it's available right there. I think that's what they're trying to do. But at the same time, yeah, it is. Like you're not buying a $1,500 phone here. You're buying probably a $70,000 truck.
Is that your guess on base price or
I think the
no?
first one that's going to be around that price. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Polestar is also now a thing in Nordic countries. I think they've been. Apologies if you already mentioned before. Yeah, I think we knew about that. Where you grew up, That's the battery
in
factory.
Saint-Basile. In Saint-Basile, that's right next to the new factory.
Maybe maybe you get some insights. So I guess like what's
Well,
so
I'm gonna
exciting about
go.
a
They're gonna
battery
have a
factory?
meeting at the place where I used to play hockey all the time, like the local arena in Saint
Okay.
Basile. They're gonna have a meeting there next week, so I'm gonna try to go and
All right.
learn about the plans for the factory and whatnot.
Maybe shoot some goals while you're there. All right, Eric Williams. Any idea when Highland Model 3 starts productions deliveries in the USA?
No, we haven't had the.
Roller 20 says predictions are next year, but we might know better. I think we've heard similar, but
Yeah, I
not
mean,
nothing solid.
we haven't heard of like a factory shutdown in Fremont or anything like that too. So I think you kind of need that to happen for that. And the Model 3 on the configurator in the US and is still the old one. We know that Shanghai right now is in production, but Shanghai doesn't deliver it in the US for import reasons and access to the tax credit and whatnot. So you might, I would think that next year too.
Yep. Turkey Neck says gas has exceeded $8 a gallon in SoCal. I didn't know about that. This will convert thousands more, regardless of Elon hatred. I see more and more Teslas and EVs every day. Yeah, it's weird that the dichotomy between like driving around California or even Westchester, New York. There's tons of EVs, and then I go to like Ohio, and you don't just they're just not there.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's still like with her Bolt. People stop her on the road saying like, "What do like? What's that like?" And I'm just like,
It's like going back 5 years,
it is,
10
or 10
like
years, but
around here.
it's like that. It's that with everything, fashion, food, everything. All
Yeah,
right.
but no, but Turkey Neck as a good point because historically there has been a strong link between gas prices and interest in electric vehicles. Like every time there's been a spike in gas prices, you've seen a spike in EV demand, and a lot of people that didn't think they would want an EV started wanting an EV. Like it works very well. It's one of those few things that have been pretty consistent in tracking EV demands has been increases in gas prices.
Yep. All right. Tesla really needs an LFP standard range Model Y since the 4680 version is gone. Plus, I'd rather have LFP 100% charging for the win. I mean, we don't even know why the Texas Model Ys have stopped coming out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's one of those mystery. But I agree that I mean, for a long time, Tesla resisted doing a standard range Model Y. They did it briefly, and then the Model Y Texas with the 4680 cells sort of replaced that as not a standard range, but as like a mid-range version. Um, I think there would be demand for cheaper, shorter range LFP. Obviously, like it would be like closer to 200 miles of range, but I think it still would still be a viable vehicle for a lot of people.
all right, we have a correction. Ian Smith says Cybertruck is actually the 6th vehicle launch.
Someone
Counting
forgot
the OG Roadster.
the Roadster. Yeah, no, the
All right.
Roadster counts. The Roadster had an impact. It wasn't a Tesla design and build vehicle from the ground up. Like it was kind of a Frankenstein vehicle, really. I kind of consider the Model S to be the first like real Tesla vehicle, but yeah, you should still count it because it did have major impact in the EV revolution. All right, last question, and then we're gonna go.
Any prediction about the Cybertruck float like a boat? Elon tweeted about that on September 29th, 2022, and they could be doing that right now in New York City.
Okay, what's happening in New York City?
It's floating. Everything's flooded.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it has been a hurricane or
no? Just
no?
what climate change.
It's sinking into the Hudson River.
Yeah.
That's one of the things like that I hate. Like there's some of these like big Tesla X account that keep posting video of Tesla vehicles like driving into water, and they're like, "This is incredible! A Tesla vehicle drives in water and everything. Like everyone should do that." Read your Tesla warranty. You're not supposed to do that, and like it looks good on video for a second, but the video doesn't show after that the Tesla service visit where they're like,
Right.
"Hey, your motor is screwed up, your battery is screwed up, or whatever." Like sometimes it works out fine, sometimes it doesn't. So don't do that. Respect your warranty, because Tesla will force it on you if something happens, and you're going to have to pay big money to have things replaced. So keep that in mind. Now, the Cybertruck, I know Elon said that, but Elon says things and then Tesla writes things in their warranties that are not the same as Elon says sometimes. So I will wait until I see on paper from Tesla that you can take your Cybertruck and use it to cross a river, and they won't void the warranty. Then I'll believe it. Before that, I'm gonna stick with probably not Cyberboat, the Cybertruck boat, or whatever you want to call it. All right,
Yeah.
well, that's gonna be it for us this week. I appreciate every single one of you that listened to the show to the very end. You're a real electric fan, a real EV enthusiast, and we're gonna see you same time, same place